Welcome back, folks. This is the third installment of our painting tutorial of termagants, where we do things just a little differently. This is our first guy, as you can see. Remember him from the first video. And this was just applying paint. No base coating, no nothing, just paint. And then our second guy was thinned down paint. So again, no sort of base coating, but we thinned our paints, made it nice and smooth, get out a little bit more detail. And as you may see, our third model, we have base coated. Now, you might not be able to see the details all that good, all that well, but don't worry, they're going to come up when we start painting. And what we're going to do is we're also going to thin our paints as well. Now, I said in the very first video that it's like 25 to 35 pounds to get started. If you wanted to base coat, I'm a fan of the Citadel Chaos Black, and as you can see, this was £12 for the can. And one can usually lasts you a fair bit, probably lasts you maybe 2 or 3 combat patrol boxes for the Warhammer stuff, so that's probably about 50 models, maybe slightly less depending on the size of the model. So to recap, we have our Wraithbone, we have our Nagarath Knight, we have our Magos Purple, we have our Cortex White, our Thunderhawk Blue, and our Armageddon Dust. Now hopefully I can get things just right for everyone and I don't pull the model too close to me this time, unlike the last video. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our Wraithbone. Remember, give it a good shake. Hopefully you all enjoyed the last video and you painted along and had a bit of fun, because that's what this is all about, just a little bit of fun. I'm going to pop these over here out of the way, and we're going to grab our brush. Remember, this one comes in the starter set that we picked up, and I'm just going to pick up some paint, put it on my little parchment paper, and then I'm going to begin thinning it down with my water here. And we want a nice smooth consistency. As you can see, it's just slightly pooling away. I think this is a nice sort of consistency for us. And then all we're going to do is pick a spot, and as always, we're just gonna go for it. I'm gonna start here. There we go. So remember, first step in this is just going for it. And the good thing with this model is that because it's been base coated, the paint should have something a little extra to stick to. And hopefully the details won't be lost when we go through all this. And as you can see, this is just applying really nicely. We kind of want to do, 2 thinnish coats. And don't be worried if it sort of pulls a little bit, because you can pull the paint away from areas. We can make them a little bit more darker in areas. And this is the good thing about a base coat, is that it can allow for some darker colouring, bit of shadows, or if you want something that's bright and vibrant, you get a nice white base coat on there. And some people talk about doing the zenithal priming. So it's like where you get a black primer like we have on now, and then from above you sort of spray a white primer as well, and this just sort of gives it as though like the sun is at its zenith, so the highest point, and it helps create light and shadow because white base coat makes things brighter. The black base coat helps highlight shadows. And the good thing with the sort of shadowy side of things is that you don't necessarily need to be too fussed about getting into the sort of darker areas too much, because they are underneath and it sort of looks very shadowy. You know, you don't have to be fancy with it either. Okay, so we just give this a good going over. And there we go. And just sort of get underneath there. I know it's not really important, but I like to just get a little bit of darkness. And the thing is, it can be a lot thinner underneath as well, and it just blends in nicely for a nice bit of shadow or a bit of shade. And I think it works absolutely grand. Okay, so now we're just gonna do the face. Just get this nice and thin down a little bit, and then all we're gonna do is go from here to here. And as you can see, it's going on like a treat. Now we want to get over here, and don't worry about it being messy or sloppy or anything like that, because it will all sort itself out when we come to put on more colours. Now, I don't know if you can see very well, so it's kind of pooling a little bit, but that's alright. It'll dry and it'll hopefully stick a bit better, sort of like this side. Now, just gonna pop that in there. As you can see, so there's the first sort of coat on our model. Doesn't look too bad, nice and thin down. And now we're just going to go over with our second coat and bring through a bit more vibrancy. If you wanted to, you could have it like this, where you've got sort of the dark recesses of the face there, with the light side here. You know, if you want to go a bit grimy, a bit gritty, one coat would be fine, and it just pulls through that black base coat. But we're gonna put on another coat. In fact, there you go. So let's get this down, and this should come up very nicely. And because it's thin, it'll go into all those little recesses where we've painted, and just sort of bring up those sort of highlighted areas a little bit. And we're not really going to do too much on the underside. We want to keep that kind of dark and gritty underneath. So I'm just going to go around ever so slightly. There you go. And I'm just going to give my brush a little bit of a wash just to get rid of some of that paint, and then we're going to dry it off as well. So just dry off the brush and then pick up a bit more of this paint. And let's go, here we go, there we go, that's it. And just nice and easy. Now you can see I've sort of just gone over the top here of this bit of armour, and that's okay. We can fix that in a bit. And there we go. Just get the face a bit more. Just slap this on. Now the whole point of this isn't to be the best, it's just to kind of get in there and have a bit of fun. You know, I'm not trying to win any awards, I'm not trying to be the best I can be, I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of relaxation while I indulge in my hobby. And there you go. Okay, I'm going to kind of leave that sort of darker underneath. So give that a little rinse off. Put that down, dry that off. There we go. Now you're probably wondering why I'm doing the full length videos, 45, 50 minutes, an hour. And quite frankly, it's just sort of nice to sit back and relax and paint along and, just not have to worry. There's so much going on in our lives that sometimes we just need to sit down. And if this helps you sit down and do it, pick up a hobby, whatever it is, then great, that's fantastic. My voice is a lot lower than normal because the microphone is so close to my face. That's it. So you don't really want to hear me shouting down the mic at you. So, okay. And maybe you find this just relaxing. And maybe this is what is perfect for you. Now we're going to get some purple. Pop it down. Now we're going to get some water. Pop it down. Okay, so this is a little bit too thin for my liking, so I'm going to thicken it up a little bit. There we go, that's perhaps a little bit better. Well, maybe a bit more. Maybe a bit more. Don't want it being too thin. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do just nicely. Okay, so let's go for the armor. Straight on top. Now, here's the magic. Because we have a black primed model, this purple is going to be a lot darker because it's going to pull through from that black. And this is why whatever base coat you choose changes how your paint reacts, especially when you thin it down, because it will pull through that undercoat. And it doesn't have to be perfect or fancy. It doesn't have to be good. You can kind of see this happening already. So where we've got the blackness, and then where I've hit it with a bit of wraithbone, it's gone lighter. So, and that's just naturally occurring because it picks up the pigment from underneath, which is really cool, I think. Sorry, I'm out of focus again. Focus. One thing I need to work on, but I am just using my phone here. Not that it's an excuse or anything, just letting you know what the circumstances are. And then there you go. So this is the perfect example. We've got our armor just here on the thigh, and this is going to be a lot brighter because of that mistake we made earlier with the wraithbone. Say mistake, you can call it a feature. Our choice in color scheme. I think that's a bit more forgiving. And then we'll get this on the top. Just take them a bit more away from there. There we go, get that onto the top. And the thing is, that's just one coat. And that looks really, really good. That's come out very dark, very sort of, well, it's got a bit of vibrancy to it. If we compare it to the last one, so as you can see, it's actually not too dissimilar. Bit darker, bit more blockier. And that's alright, so once this dries, what we'll do is we'll bring it up with a bit of highlighting. And one coat is enough for this, so one coat is fine for this. Let's just leave that as it is. I think one coat is just great for that. And give our brush a little rinse. Give it a dry off, there we go. And you know, this brush is holding up pretty nicely, I must admit. Okay, so now we're going to use Thunderhawk Blue. Now, on our previous model, we actually painted the feet and the claws white. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to leave it black, and let's see what happens. So there's a little bit of white there, but you know, that's fine. Let's just see what happens. So I'm going to give this a shake. And open it up, there we go. Now, grab a nice blob. There we go, get some water on there. Bit more water. There we go. That's all we need. That should be fine. Okay, here we go. Start with the feet and off to the races. Now that's not too bad. Let's get just around to there. And we'll get this little talon here at the back. I don't know if you can, probably won't see it all that much, but that's alright. And then let's just double check our model. Yeah, so we want to get this one here as well. Get the back of the foot. Try and get the back of the foot under there. Fantastic. We'll get the claw. As you can see, I'm just being a little bit sloppy. I don't really mind too much. You know, if it lands well or not, you know. You can always tidy it up. And you know, that's what this hobby's all about. You know, if you play on the tabletop, it doesn't need to be perfect. If you want it to be perfect, then fine, you go ahead, you make it perfect. But this is a journey, this is a learning experience, this is something that we are going through together. No, I don't know if you see that very well, there we go. And you know what? There's so many great YouTubers out there who really put effort into what they do. And that's great. They enjoy their jobs, their hobbies, and they share that with you. So, you know, go over there and give them a bit of love and support. You know, find a nice YouTuber who you appreciate, who you gel with and vibe with. You know, maybe these long form videos aren't for you. Maybe you want something shorter where it's a bit more sped up, and that's fine. That's you know, you do you, kid. That's the way the world works. Okay, you don't have to be perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, and I can guarantee you that my painting will not be perfect either. Okay, so that's that. Let's let that dry for a moment. Okay, now we're just going to pick up a bit of white. And we're going to just get the teeth on this one. So just give that a little shake. There you go. let's get a bit more in there. A bit too thin. There we go. And just one on the tip of our brush. And need to hold it steady. Just, there we go. All I'm doing is lightly laying this over. And don't worry, what happens is the water will evaporate as it dries, allowing it to get into those recesses a bit more. So as you see, like, for this sort of side of things, like, it's not too important because like half of his face is covered by the gun, so don't really need to worry about getting all the way around there. Okay, so that's it for the white, nice and easy. So we used it for the feet last time. Let's give that a rinse. Now, those feet kind of look a little on the darker side. Let's just get rid of that, there we go. So, and if we do a little comparison, see, these feet look a bit lighter. You probably can't see very well because of my lighting, but there you go. Whereas these ones look a bit darker. And this is solely just down from the base coat. Do we give it another touch up? I think we do, just in some areas. So we'll pick up some more of that blue, and we'll just touch up the top here of the weapon, just to kind of fill it out a little bit so it doesn't look too mishmashed. Just get those little extra details. And we'll go over the claw so it doesn't look as bad or as blotchy. Don't need to worry about the insides too much. Don't need to worry about the shadowy sort of areas. And I'm going to leave the feet sort of darker, so just the one coat on those would be fine because, you know, they're underneath them, so a little bit darker. And there we go, so that's that. And then we're doing our little contrast purple here, so our Makos purple. And now this does not need thin down in any way, it's already very thin. So all we're going to do is load up our brush a little bit. And we're going to find these little areas and just drop in that paint. Now, as you get more and more into the hobby, you'll decide that you might want more brushes to help give more detail, to get the more finer things, and I would encourage you to do that. Only if you think the hobby's right for you, though. You know, don't just go out and buy all the gear just to start the hobby. Like I'm just using this little brush that came in the box, and it seems to be doing just enough to see whether or not we like the hobby, and that's the most important part, because no one wants to spend a few £100 on, or euros or dollars or whatever it is, on something that they don't enjoy. And then you kind of feel sort of obligated in a way to do the hobby because you spent so much money on it. You don't want to waste that. There we go. Let's get some more back here. And I think that's it all. So let's just soak up a little bit of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this off our brush. we're then going to dry our brush. So we've got a nice dry brush, and all we're going to do is just come in and just sort of soak it up a little bit. Okay. Same with this one. Just going to soak it up a little bit. There you go. Put that back down there. Soak it up. There you go. So I'm going to soak that up. Put that over there a little bit. Over there. And then we'll get the eyes and what have you. So the good thing about contrast paints is that because they're so thin, they just fall into those recesses. And it sort of gives its own little highlighting effect as well. So it'll pull in the dark areas, or it'll move away from the lighter areas. So you get more of a highlight sort of thing on the go. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit more. Got a bit too much there. I'm going to pop that just here, and here, and here. So you can see like I'm not too careful with it. So this is where a thinner brush would definitely come in handy. But you know what? It does the job. Does it just perfectly. Okay, so that is technically it all done. There's our model, and this has only taken half the time because we had that primer, so it's given us just a little bit more speed to work with. Now we're going to do something a little bit more to this model. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our Major's purple here, and we're going to take our Cortex white, and we're going to mix them together to create a sort of pinkish colour. So let's take a nice glob, and I'll put that down there. There we go, get a couple of globs. Now this is the thing when you start mixing paints, is that it does sort of feel a bit wasted. But you know, that's the way it works. So just get that off. Okay, and then we're going to take our purple. Now because the purple's quite dark and vibrant, we only really want the tiniest little bit, and we're just going to mix that in. And there you go, see how it's sort of thinning out to a nice pinkish sort of colour. Let's there we go, let's get a bit more on there. Load up the brush, don't worry about it going everywhere, that's fine. And what we want to do is wipe off all the excess, and all we're going to do is dry brush over the top to give a little bit of shade. Now this isn't quite dry, but you know what, doesn't matter. Let's take off a bit more, see if that does anything. There we go, take off a bit more. Yeah. And there we have it. So it kind of just brings things out a little bit in a very different sort of fashion. So as you can see, it's not the best, but you know what? I think it looks pretty cool. Gives it a nice bit of flaring look to it. In fact, let's just get this side here, because we've sort of missed that. There you go. It just brings it up, gives it a whole new look. And what we can do is take our purple, pinky purple here, and we can just apply this to the very tops. So these are the highest points. So the very tops, tippity tippity tops. And there you go. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be the best thing you've ever done. And that's that. And what we could do is we could even go one step further, maybe something with the teeth. Maybe we mix in a bit of... See, this is where the fun comes in, folks. This is where the actual fun of miniature painting comes in, is you can just experiment. You can just have fun. Now, what do we want to do? We want to do something with the teeth. We want to kind of bring it out a little bit. So, let's use a bit of our technical dust here. And I don't want the sandy, gritty part. I want the paint part of it. So let me just give this a good shake up. Okay, and all I'm going to do is just sort of load up the brush a little bit. Yeah, fine, there we go. Load it up. Wipe away a bit of that excess. Tiny dab of water. And we're just going to drop it on. There we go. So all we're doing is dropping it on. Spreading it around a little bit. I kind of messed it up a little bit with the teeth, but don't worry, we're going to fix this. There we go. So now we take that off. Dry our brush. Now we've got a dry brush, we can pick up some of this. There you go, see how I just sort of wicked it away? And now it's in our brush. Well, it hasn't really worked too well. Maybe it's technical, not designed for anything like that. Well, let's just try do a little bit of dry brushing with it. So dry off our brush. Get our little technical here. Just a bit of colour. Just the tiniest bit of colour. Just see what we can do. And I'm gonna get really close here. And maybe not so much. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's doing something. You know, it's thin enough, which is good. It's very thin. That's doing just that tiny, tiny little bit of something. Okay, and then we'll just rinse that off. Dry off our brush and see if we can just pick out a little bit of that. Thin it down just a smidge. There you go, give them a bit more of a grittier sort of look. Now, that's, I mean, it's something, you know, that's really is something. Let's just bring it up and take a look. I mean, it looks terrible, but it looks great at the same time. Try not to shake the camera too much. So the thing is, you can see this a lot better than I can with the camera lens as opposed to my eyes. So it's kind of doing something. And you know what? This looks great. It looks completely different to this one. Some better, some worse. You know, maybe, you know, with if we primed this model instead, we could get more around the tongue and the teeth. And there you go. Okay, so let's just do our base very quickly, and then that's all three models done and dusted. So let's pick up some of this. There we go. Let's put it on our base, and we're just gonna spread it around a little bit. Bit of sandiness, bit of grittiness. Works pretty well. Starting to get the hang of this technical stuff, I think. Not really one for doing too much on bases. Maybe that's something we'll learn together. We'll go through it and we can figure it out as we go, like what works best, what doesn't work. You know, if you want to see anything done very poorly, you know, let me know in the comments. More than happy to make myself look the fool so you can see how things work. I'm not too concerned with how things look. If it works, it works. But remember, folks, it works for you. That's the thing. It has to work for you. Okay? There's no point learning all these techniques and all these fancy terms or fancy ways of doing things. Just get a bit of water on there to bring this down a little bit. There you go. Oh, that's what we were missing, folks. A little dab of water. That's gone a long way. Oh, look at that. Just keeps it off the brush. There you go. Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And look at that. We just discovered something. We just tried it and it worked for us. Okay, so let's get rid of our paint. And that is everything, folks. Okay, that's it for an introduction to miniature painting, to some Warhammer models, and to think, here is where we started. Here is our starting place. There we go. Look at that. So bad looks good. Here is our next evolution. Got detail. Things come through just a little bit more. And then our last little place where things look completely different, where we can pick up details and we change the way it looks by adding a little bit of highlighting and brushing. Doesn't have to look perfect, doesn't have to look good. Remember, in nature nothing looks exactly like it's supposed to, as in like nothing looks exactly the same as another thing. Everything has a variation, everything is always different. And that's with life. Everything is always different. Now we could tidy these models up very well in time. And I think maybe that'll be our next challenge, is we will tidy up our 3 Ptarmigons and just see what it comes out as, using different brushes, getting those finer details in place. We're not going to strip away any paint or anything. We are just going to try to rescue, so to speak. And that's it, folks. Now, I did mention in our last video about having a passion project, and I want to share with you my little passion project. So I have recently gotten into Blood Bowl, which again is by Games Workshop, Warhammer, but I find it to be a very fun take on it. Now, I've already primed and painted some of the models. Well, I've painted one of them, and here's one of them right now. I don't know how well you can make that out, but all that is a different type of paint. So this is the Army Speed Painter, paints with a bit of acrylic dry brushing on top. And it's come out alright. Now there's a different sort of colouring between what the eye sees and what the camera sees, but that's alright, you know. So maybe on our next video we'll take this guy. Okay, we're going to take this guy. He's a referee, and we're going to paint him using speed paints, just to see how things come up and if it looks good. That's it for me, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully you've had some music on in the background. I've painted along. I'll see you in the next video.